Hello Ecofest, my name is Tom and I live here in Neville's Cross and I'm really pleased to be contributing to Ecofest for the second year in a row. I'm a chartered engineer working locally on projects to reduce emissions across the county, and outside of my day job I'm trying to get people like you to think through their personal emissions in a YouTube series called Low Carbon Lifestyle. Please do have a look on YouTube. We have this major challenge across the nation and globally to reduce emissions drastically as soon as we can. The UN would suggest that reduction should be about half of our emissions in the next 9 or 10 years to avoid global heating of more than 1.5 degrees. So how are we doing as Neville's Cross, or maybe Durham City? What is our vision as a community to reduce our emissions by half within 10 years? And what about further than that? How far could we go? What are we doing as individuals or families or homeowners or renters or landlords in Neville's Cross that will really shift the dial, that will drastically reduce our emissions? What do we need to do? Well, let's start with where are we as a community. We don't have data that goes into that much detail for emissions that goes on a community level, but we do have data for County Durham. And with a few assumptions, and I'll lead you through that, we could probably guess our emissions for Neville's Cross. In 2018, the last full year of data, County Durham emitted 2.2 megatons of CO2. 2.2 million tonnes of CO2. Wow. For context, that's 53% lower than in 1990 for lots of reasons that we won't go into now, but it's still lots and lots of carbon dioxide. If we assume that the emissions linked to the county are shared fairly per person, we can start to estimate how much we emit in this community in Neville's Cross. So, looking at data on Durham Insight, we can estimate, or we can see that the population is about 530,000 people in County Durham. And it suggests that we have about 15,000 people living in Neville's Cross, or about 2.9% of the county's population. This means that the emissions for our ward could be about 64,500 tonnes per year. Although in Neville's Cross we don't have much industry, we are probably likely to be in the higher economic brackets. I mean, this ward is in the 5% least deprived in the country. Isn't that amazing? But that means that we're probably likely to have more cars, we're likely to travel further, and we're likely to use more energy than most of the rest of the county. So let's assume that Neville's Cross emits 64,500 tonnes of CO2 per annum. Let's just make that assumption. Where does that come from? Well, 81% of our households have at least one car. 36% have 2 or more. And if a fossil fuel powered car does 10,000 miles a year, which many of us do, it will emit over 2 tonnes of CO2. 88% of us have homes with natural gas heating, and if your heating bill with a gas boiler was about £500 last year, the gas boiler would have been emitting about 3 tonnes of CO2. We have 4,500 dwellings, so we have over 4,000 gas boilers, 12,000 tonnes of CO2, and we have over 4,000 cars, 8,000 tonnes of CO2 per year. We also have a couple of gridlocked main roads. I live on one of them. And then we also have a few public buildings in the ward. So we've got 2 primary schools. We've got Durham Johnson High School, we've got St Leonard's High School, and let's count Durham School 2, that's nearby. And these will have significant emissions. Maybe 50 to 100 tonnes per year for the primary schools, maybe up to 500 tonnes per year for a high school. So that's where we're at. What are we going to do about it? Well, here are some thoughts for Ecofest in 2021. As a community, we could do something about this. First of all, we could look to set up a community energy fund to start to tackle this problem. We could start by raising some money to maybe install solar panels on the 2 primary schools in this ward. We could put a medium-sized solar PV system, I'm talking a 10 kilowatt peak system, on each school for about £25,000 or £30,000, or about £2 per resident. A 10 kilowatt peak system will produce around 8,000 kilowatt hours per year, and that will reduce the school's emissions by about 2 tonnes, and that will reduce the school's costs by about £1,000 per year. That could be an interesting thing to propose. Obviously, they're all estimates at the moment, educated guesses, and we need to develop a bit of a feasibility, procure a contractor, check the structure of the roof, get the schools on board, etc, etc, etc. But maybe that's a nice place to start. After that, we could, if we could overcome all planning constraints, anything that might get in the way, maybe we could look at a community-wide solar panel installation, every roof that is facing south. That could cost about £5,000 per home, and we could try to install solar panels en masse, maybe a street full, maybe a few streets full, and that could help reduce costs if we got 1 or 2 contractors to do it en masse. Next, we could look into supporting the classic and electric vehicle showroom at the A167 Neville's crossroads, and we could buy a second-hand electric vehicle there. Or we could go a bit further and fund some solar panels at Durham Johnson and St Leonard's. We could start a fund to help install air source heat pumps across the community. And we should note here that actually the new community centre that's hopefully going to be built on Lowes Barn Bank has been designed to be heated by heat pumps and powered by a small solar array. So that's great. That's a great start for the community. So what else? Maybe we could support a no-car day for our gridlocked main roads, or a bike to school week or month. We could try to improve cycling provision. We could make a concerted effort to reduce traffic through our community somehow. So what do you think? What are we going to do in this next 10 years? How are we going to be active in the next 5, in the next 10 years to drastically cut our emissions in Neville's Cross? I would love to keep talking about this stuff, so please do get in touch with me wherever you find this video, and find me on YouTube. Just search Low Carbon Lifestyle or Tom Bray on YouTube. I'd be really happy to chat things through. Let's keep fossil fuels where they belong, in the ground or in a museum. Thanks, Ecofest.